Good afternoon, everyone. During his campaign, President Trump called for a, quote, complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. On Friday, he acted to make good on that promise. He signed an executive order that bars entry for many and suspends our nation's refugee program. Over the past 3 days, my office has closely reviewed the language of the order and its many impacts on our state and our people. The executive order is harmful, discriminatory, and unconstitutional. It discriminates on the basis of religion and national origin, denies our residents access to due process and equal protection of the law, and violates federal immigration law. The role of this office is to uphold the law and the Constitution of this state and of the United States. So today, on behalf of Massachusetts and our interests, including our university system, my office is filing suit to challenge the executive order. I am heartened to share the stage at this difficult time with others who will share their words. First, we have with us the president of the University of Massachusetts, Marty Meehan. We have the executive director of the ACLU Massachusetts, Carol Rose, Muhammad Ali, president and CEO of Carbonite, Raymond C. Offenheiser, president of Oxfam America, Ava Malona, executive director of the Massachusetts Immigrants and Refugees Advocacy Coalition, Mike Sierzinski, vice president of the Massachusetts Health and Hospital Association. We're also joined today by Dr. Robert Brown, president of Boston University, representatives from the American Immigration Lawyers Association, the Somali Community Association, representatives from the City of Boston, Massport, the Board of Higher Education, Partners Healthcare, and Tom Hopcroft, president of the Massachusetts Technology Leadership Council. We stand here, and with others across this state, as a unified Massachusetts community, from government, business, medicine, academia, nonprofits, and advocacy, all working together to reject this discriminatory and dangerous measure. It's this solidarity that makes us strong. We know the last several days have been chaotic and challenging for so many. Beginning on Saturday, we learned of detentions happening at Logan Airport. 2 of those detained Saturday afternoon were professors in the College of Engineering at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. In fact, they were detained coming back to the United States, to their home, from an engineering conference abroad. Both are Iranian nationals who earned their PhDs at Johns Hopkins University in Maryland and are lawful permanent residents of this country. They are training the next generation of Massachusetts engineers. But with a wave of a pen, the president's executive order kept them and thousands of others from coming home. The executive order barred people fleeing persecution and war. It barred Iraqi interpreters who have assisted our own military. And it barred students and researchers trying to get back to classrooms here in Boston and across this country. Over a long and uncertain Saturday evening, airports around the country drew a number of protesters. When I got to Terminal E on Saturday, the ACLU, along with immigration lawyers, advocates, the media, and government agencies were already working to get travelers released, including Susan Church and Heather Younts, who are here today from the Immigration Lawyers Association. In the early hours of Sunday, the federal court in Boston temporarily halted the detentions. Today, Massachusetts is joining the case to protect our state, our university system, and the rights of faculty and student body from the ongoing harms of this illegal order. We're also suing to protect the rights of businesses, colleges, hospitals, and the residents of Massachusetts who are unable to travel or to plan for the future. Yesterday I was over at a middle school in Dorchester, and I met 2 twin sisters born in Boston to parents from Somalia. That's one of the countries that's on the president's executive order travel ban. They told me, like me, they like to play basketball. They told me they wanted to go to college. And they were chosen for this program yesterday because they are young leaders in their school. They told me, too, that they are afraid. They are afraid of the president and of what is happening in our country. They asked me, what are you going to do to make us feel safe? I told those children that my office enforces the laws that protect people, that keep people safe. I told them that we would be there to protect them against discrimination based on their religion, their race, their national origin. We talked about the Constitution and the Statue of Liberty and how we've always been a nation of immigrants. The same conversation that so many have had over the past few days. One of the girls then cried, and it broke my heart. That is the impact of this executive order. I want them to know that Massachusetts will have their back and that no executive order, no president is more powerful than their rights as Americans and no more powerful than our Constitution. Over the past few days, I've thought a lot about what makes Massachusetts such a special place. As our college professors know, we have the best students from around the world, the best faculties, the best brains, the best scientists. And because of those people, we have businesses and labs and startups, nonprofits that reflect an incredible diversity, energy, and creativity. Because of our people, we've truly become a global state and a global leader. And that's just one reason why this executive order is such a threat. Because it threatens the vitality, the livelihood, the lifeblood that drives so much of Massachusetts. It sends the message that some people aren't wanted, that people will be judged, classified, and segregated. It's a threat to our values, the values they're teaching in middle schools all across this state. The values you see reflected every day at places like the University of Massachusetts or Boston University or in our great hospitals or institutions. The executive order is also a threat to our national security. It tells our enemies that homeland security decisions will be made without any input from our intelligence agencies to achieve political objectives. And it's a threat to our Constitution. By filing this suit today, we are fighting for the principles that have made America a beacon of hope and freedom for the world. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call President Marty Meehan.
Thank you very much, General. I'm here as the president of the University of Massachusetts. And, the University of Massachusetts was an original land-grant university. A Republican member of Congress, Justin Maura, and Abraham Lincoln signed that bill into law so that we could provide a transformational education to people across this country and across Massachusetts. In 1870, we admitted our first out-of-state student. And the University of Massachusetts had been growing in terms of its prestige and in terms of its mission. It is important as a leader of this institution to speak out and say that we will do everything we can do to protect our faculty, our students, our scholars, our researchers. We thank the work of the Attorney General and the lawyers who have been involved in this. We're a world-class university that recruits faculty literally from all over the world. We have 166 faculty, scholars, and staff who are from these 7 countries. We have over 300 students that are from these countries. We're a university of 75,000 students, 25,000 employees, and those students and those faculty members who come to us from other parts of the world are critically important to our mission. We are a research institution. We do over $630 million worth of research. You cannot be a world-class research institution and not reach out to those scientists, to those scholars, to those faculty members all over the world. This order undermines the mission of the University of Massachusetts, a mission that is critically important to this state and to this country. I want to make an additional, and I want to thank Bob Brown for his outstanding op-ed piece in the Globe on this subject, because this affects the private research universities as much as the public research universities. You look at an executive order like this. I had an opportunity to serve a period of time in the Congress. In fact, I've visited over 150 countries around the world representing the United States. It is not in the interest of the United States to have other countries in the world view us this way. It is not in the interest of the United States, as we look at issues of terrorism, to operate this way, to not have the Secretary of Defense, the head of Homeland Security involved in these decisions. I am calling on every university president in America to stand up and be heard. The American system of higher education is the envy of the world. It's one of the things that makes us special and makes us important in terms of the global economy and in terms of our contribution to the world. This is very, very important, and there isn't a state in the country that contributes more than the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the University of Massachusetts is committed to protecting our students, to supporting our faculty. We appreciate the Attorney General's action and the lawyers who have been involved, and we look forward to continuing to be part of the mission to make the University of Massachusetts great and inclusive of people from everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carol Rose from the ACLU, Massachusetts.
Thanks, Maura. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. On behalf of the ACLU and the tens of thousands of ACLU members in Massachusetts and millions of ACLU members nationwide, I'm so honored to be here. And I am so proud to be a resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because we have a wonderful Attorney General who's willing to step forward and to join this case, this important constitutional case, and to say that on behalf of all of the residents of Massachusetts, this shall not stand. I'm also really pleased to announce today our lawyers at the ACLU are going into court, probably as we speak, to file an amended complaint to include more people whose rights have been violated. In addition to that, an institutional plaintiff, Oxfam America, who you'll be hearing from later. And that's incredibly important, because the lives at stake aren't only the lives of the people from these 7 nations. They're the lives of all of us and all of the people who would come into our Commonwealth and create the vibrant learning academies that we have, and the vibrant economy that we have, and the science and technology economy that we need to make sure that Massachusetts and America remain strong. This executive order is illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it's unpatriotic. It's also dangerous, as Attorney General Maura Healey just said. The ban violates people's fundamental rights. It violates their First Amendment rights, which prohibit the government from preferring or discriminating against people based on their religion. It violates the First Amendment right to speech, because it prohibits academics and scientists and other people from having the opportunity to engage in the exchange of ideas that's so crucial to our economic well-being. It also violates people's 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection and due process under the law. It's just so clearly unconstitutional, and we believe it will be struck down. It undermines public safety by shrinking our moral leadership across the country. An attack on an entire religion does nothing but fuel people who are opposed to the United States and who think that we don't stand next to the values for which we have stood since we were created as a nation, and starting right here in Massachusetts. It's especially bad for Massachusetts because of our dynamic and high-tech, science-based economy. We need the talent from all over the world and the learning from all over the world. And this kind of an executive order undermines the health of our nation and of our Commonwealth. The ACLU told President Trump that if he tried to bring unconstitutional policies into our country, we would see him in court. And the ACLU, along with the American Immigration Lawyers Association, the representatives of whom are here now, we met him in court on Saturday night, got an order issued at 2 in the morning, and we won that temporary stay. Now that we have the power of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Office of Attorney General Maura Healey behind us, I'm even more confident that this order will be struck down permanently. And the fight is far from over. If we have to, the ACLU will continue to challenge this and other illegal, unconstitutional, and frankly unpatriotic moves by this administration in court every single time, because we know that if we fight, we can win, and that's what it takes to ensure freedom and justice for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohammed Ali. I'm the CEO of Carbonite. On behalf of the Massachusetts Technology Leadership Council, the tech community, and myself as CEO of Carbonite, we believe this executive order is detrimental to our state and our country. It is morally and ethically beneath our American values. America is a nation of compassion, and we do not turn our backs on those in need and seeking refuge. This immigration order is also damaging to business and innovation, economic growth, and job creation. Some of our greatest companies were or are led by first or second generation immigrants and those with diverse backgrounds. Steve Jobs of Apple had a Syrian father. His name was Abdul Fattah Jandali. Andy Grove was a refugee from communist Hungary. He created Intel. His birth name was Andras Astavan Grof. And Indra Nooyi at PepsiCo, CEO of PepsiCo, she was born in Chennai, India. These leaders created millions of jobs here in America, including manufacturing jobs. Further, the immigration order could serve to make our country less safe, a point both Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham made just a few days ago, by playing right into the rhetoric of those who are bent on harming us. And finally, it is just simply a violation of that revered document we as Americans and citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hold dear, the Constitution. No one is above the Constitution. And it's on this basis that we stand firmly with our Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Ray Offenheiser from Oxfam America. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Oxfam America, our staff, and our supporters throughout the United States, I'm here this morning to say that we're delighted and proud to join the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the ACLU in being a plaintiff in this very, very important historic case that has obviously national implications for addressing this executive order that shocked, I think, our nation over the last week. Oxfam, for those of you who don't know us, is based here in Boston. We have been here in Boston since 1971. But we're part of a global organization, a confederation of Oxfams, that creates lasting solutions to hunger, poverty, and social injustice through long-term partnerships with poor communities around the world. We work in some 90 countries. We have a diverse workforce, including 5 of the 7 countries that have actually been named in the executive order, specifically Syria, Yemen, Sudan, and Somalia. And we have worked in Darfur since the darkest days of the Darfur famine with the people of the province of Darfur in Sudan. The people that we work with around the world are agriculture experts, engineering experts, lawyers, they're translators, policy experts, drivers. They represent all the kinds of professions that you could possibly imagine. Some are middle class. Some live right in the center of their country's violence and turmoil. Many have lost family members, and many are actually actively involved in fighting for peace in their countries and seeking security under some of the most dire circumstances that one could imagine around the globe. Particularly important is that they understand the social and political context in which they live and in which they work. And where they've raised their families and where they have represented a strong, in some sense, resistance to very repressive governments. An essential part of our work as Oxfam is actually bringing these authentic voices, the people that we work with on the ground in many of these countries, these 90 countries around the world, many of them at war, many of them victims of natural disasters, bringing them here to the United States to speak with policymakers and business leaders and not-for-profit, other not-for-profits in the country, as well as universities. and particularly our donors, who actually in some ways are representatives of Americans who care about the greater world, who are part of sort of, I guess you might say, internationalism, the representation of internationalism as a value, as a civic value here in the United States. In many cases, the people that we bring provide critical, timely, insightful information to U.S. leaders. And they do this in confidence or in public when possible to educate the world about what is really happening in their countries. Most importantly, they bear witness on Oxfam's behalf about their experiences and the conditions in their particular countries. Currently, we live in a world in which the space for dissent and the space for free speech is unfortunately diminishing. In order to represent these issues to our leadership and policymakers, we have to bring people into our country to speak about this closing civil society space, about the limited space for dissent and public voice and civic action. We must bring these people to the United States, in some cases, because they cannot speak safely in their own countries. It's not possible. In so doing, I think, as has been mentioned up till this point, there are actually national security benefits to the work that Oxfam and many other international organizations do around the world every day, to relieve suffering, to address issues of conflict, to work on peacekeeping far away from our shores. And it's very, very important that our leadership and our public and our universities know about this work and know about these countries and know about them in depth. And those linkages are critically important, I think, here in Massachusetts, but really throughout our nation. The kind of meetings that we're talking about and discussions enable Oxfam really to educate these U.S. government officials about political and humanitarian conditions in the most affected countries, and really allow them to interrogate and in some ways ask very specific questions to the people that visit our country who can speak to these issues from real experience from on the ground. So finally, I think it's important to recognize we live in an ever more interdependent world. And it's a moment in time when, more than ever, the world should not be assuming an isolationist position. More than ever, we should be linked to the world, and we should be informed about the world, and we should be interacting in dialogue and collaboration with countries and civil societies from throughout the world. So this, for us, I think, our interest in this particular piece of this particular case and this particular executive order has to do with the fact that we believe that it jeopardizes our ability as an organization to continue to carry out this important mission in many of the places where we're really needed most. And we're actually extraordinarily pleased, and again, I want to say proud, to join the Commonwealth and the ACLU in being a plaintiff in this case, and we will be committed to this process going forward and look forward to further collaboration with both the Commonwealth and the ACLU on the similar matters in the future. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Eva Malona. I'm the Executive Director of Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition. On behalf of MIRA, who's been fighting for 30 years for the rights and opportunities of immigrants and refugees and their inclusion into our fabric of our Commonwealth, I'm pleased to be here and stand proud with our Attorney General and our distinguished colleagues in support of this case making history in this great Commonwealth. President's executive orders announced without policy debate, without process, or without any consultation with stakeholders, it's deeply troubling. These executive orders include the enforcement and priorities have terrorized tens and thousands of families with U.S. citizen children. Massachusetts has a long tradition of welcoming immigrants and refugees. Home to 1 million immigrants and a special experiment in the country for the civic, linguistic, economic, and social integration. Approximately 70,000 refugees have arrived in Massachusetts since 1986. They contribute in academic, life, science, and economy, as you heard from previous speakers. Massachusetts is the fourth largest of foreign students in higher education. Over 55,000 students come to Massachusetts. 35% of all those who hold doctorate degrees in the state are held by immigrants, despite the fact that they comprise only 18% of the population 25 years and older. Immigrants comprise 27% of physicians and surgeons in our Commonwealth. Latino and Asian immigrant entrepreneurs contribute tens of billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs in the economy in our state. 25% of entrepreneurs in Massachusetts are immigrants, employing over 134,000 people. 58% of Fortune 500 businesses in Massachusetts are founded by immigrants. Immigrants earn 15% of all income in Massachusetts and contribute around $4.5 billion in federal tax. Also, be reminded that Massachusetts leadership has always shaped the nation's consciousness, civil rights, and inclusion, from the abolitionist movement of the 19th century to the 21st century struggle of healthcare and marriage equality. Here in Massachusetts, we don't just talk. We stand up, we organize, we litigate, and we march. MIRA and our members and allies across the state and the nation are committed to advancing and strengthening the movement and to protect the rights of all people, our values, and our Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ava.
Good afternoon, and thank you. My name is Michael Strozinski. I'm Vice President of the Massachusetts Health and Hospital Association, and I'm proud to stand here today to convey the hospital community's strong support for the Attorney General and the Commonwealth's challenge to the President's executive order. Caregivers of all types have a time-honored tradition and commitment to treating all patients equally. Physicians take an oath to treat all people regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, religious, or political affiliation, and this commitment is shared by their colleagues. The Massachusetts hospital and healthcare community, in particular, is a global one, made up of individuals of many nationalities. Healthcare employees, whether they serve in the cafeteria or boiler room, in clerical jobs or as translators, as nurses or other professional caregiver roles, or as academic colleagues, come from around the United States and from around the world, and so do their patients and their families. They care for all people without regard to anything but illness or injury that person may be experiencing. Already, we are aware of clinicians, researchers, and professors from our community who were detained while traveling for business or personal reasons over the weekend. And it was particularly chilling and deeply distressing to the medical community here to have such an action impact some of their very own. More than 630,000 people are employed in healthcare and social services in the Commonwealth. As a medical mecca, and I use that word with great pride, Massachusetts and its academic research community is at the heart of many breakthroughs, treatments, and cures, all propelled by the contributions of international students, researchers, and medical professionals from around the world. Healthcare has always been an innovation incubator. We never know where the cure to cancer or the next life-saving treatment will come from. As a nation of immigrants, those medical advances, sometimes perceived as miracles, come from the best and brightest minds both here and across the globe. Such medical achievements further all mankind. They do not have geographic or political boundaries placed upon them. For that reason, we don't want to limit innovation in the United States or a healthier future for all of us by improperly restricting access to anyone who desires to come here to contribute to that vital work. Such a travel ban can only cause a chilling effect on talented and dedicated clinicians and caregivers and the related healthcare community from coming to our country. And because this is a highly competitive environment, we know they'll be very welcome elsewhere in the world. We've also heard from our hospital and health system CEOs there is a deep sense of fear in many employees at their facilities. People are worried not only about their careers, but their families and friends. This doesn't just affect those from the 7 countries or other immigrants, but extends to the greater healthcare family. The Commonwealth's academic medical centers and community hospitals are some of the best in the world. As these hospitals rely on an influx of international medical professionals, we know the current travel ban will have a disproportionate and significant impact on the healthcare sector here. MHA, its member hospitals, healthcare systems, and physician organizations are already working to support those staff affected by the travel ban with legal and emotional support. And MHA will work to support national and local efforts to resolve this situation with every resource available to us. Our state's hospitals and health systems stand firmly and proudly behind our staff and our patients, and we stand firmly behind the Commonwealth's legal challenge to this executive order.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up for questions.
Madam Attorney General, can you be more specific on what the details of this lawsuit actually is? Like, what does it do?
Sure. Well, the lawsuit does a couple of things. Number one, it asks the federal court to strike down the executive order as unconstitutional. Number two, in the meantime, it asks the court to enter an order extending the stay of of that executive order. That's what we hope to accomplish with this lawsuit. It is to have this this executive order struck down as unconstitutional.
How soon will that happen? How soon something like that can happen? Because obviously people are deeply concerned. And also, more importantly, do you have a message to the President of the United States today, and what is it?
What we're hoping is that we're able to we will be filing a little bit later this afternoon. The ACLU will be filing an amended complaint this afternoon, and we expect that things will move quickly in the court. There is a hearing set for, I believe, next week. But my message is simply this, that no one is above the law, that our job in government and here in the Attorney General's office is to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, that we uphold the tenets and the principles set forth in our state constitution, in our United States Constitution. The executive order is unconstitutional and must be struck down, and we need to be prepared at all turns to take action as an office when and if someone acts in ways that are unlawful or unconstitutional. And whether it's the President of the United States or a federal agency acting in a way that's unlawful or acting in a way that's unconstitutional, we will be prepared to take action. My job is to make sure that we're protecting the interests of residents and businesses and this state of Massachusetts. And I am so heartened to be joined here today by President Meehan, representing the University of Massachusetts system, representing businesses, representing health institutions, representing nonprofits, representing an entire web of what really makes Massachusetts a wonderful place to make home. And what the President's executive order did the other day, in addition to it being unconstitutional and discriminatory and violative of some basic principles we have long appreciated in this Commonwealth, including religious liberty, it really harms the interests of Massachusetts. And you heard that story told in the words of my colleagues. We're taking action because it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing under the law, and it's right for the people in the interests of Massachusetts.
Mr. Can you be specific about what that harm is? What gives you legal standing? How are Commonwealth citizens harmed legally by this measure?
Well, in a number of ways, and we'd be happy to provide you with copies of the complaint as soon as we file it. But let me just take you through a few principles. First of all, this violates the rights of Massachusetts residents. It violates their right to be treated equally under the law. You are not supposed to discriminate against someone based on their religion. That's what this order does. Number two, it violates due process. It violates the due process rights of people here in our state. People who, for example, were on planes looking to return home here to Massachusetts where they live, where they work, without due process of the law. You're not allowed to treat people under the principles of due process in a way that is unfair, that is discriminatory, that is arbitrary, and that's what this executive order did. This order also violates the rights of Massachusetts residents to their freedom of religion, an important principle enshrined in our First Amendment. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment prohibits the federal government from officially preferring one religion over another. And finally, it interferes with us as a state. You know, there is the 10th Amendment, which basically sets forth this concept that there are certain powers reserved to the federal government, but everything else is left to the states. And what this executive order does is essentially force Massachusetts as a state to discriminate against one group of people here based on their religion. That violates our rights as a sovereign state, and then that way it violates the 10th Amendment. The interests here in Massachusetts, as more broadly articulated, we're talking about Massachusetts residents, students, Massachusetts employers, and those who work as employees in Massachusetts institutions like the University of Massachusetts. We're also talking about a serious interference with our economic lifeblood here in this state. Our health institutions, our research institutions, academic institutions, all important contributors to the economic lifeblood, the fabric of our state. But at bottom, what this is about is a violation of the Constitution, discriminating against people based on their religion, discriminating against people because of their country of origin, discriminating against people who are actually lawful permanent residents of this country, discriminating against people who are often fleeing. It may be war, it may be drought, it may be domestic violence, it may be child abuse, who are fleeing a country to come to this country as political asylees or refugees. That is a system that we have had in place for a long time. It has worked well here in Massachusetts and across this country. And the president's executive order the other day harmed all of that, and certainly in doing so, and as evidenced here today, really harmed the people and the interests of Massachusetts.
Do you think this should go through the regular court process, or should it go directly to the Supreme Court?
It should go through the process of any litigation that we file. You know, this office files lawsuits from time to time. This isn't the first time, by the way, that we've challenged the federal government. This office sued the George Bush administration, Massachusetts versus EPA. That was a lawsuit filed a few years ago, and it did ultimately go up all the way to the Supreme Court. We also, as an office, filed against President Obama's administration years ago in our challenge to the Defense of Marriage Act, a case that ultimately went up to the Supreme Court. So this is not the first time a state attorney general's office or this attorney general's office has stepped up to file a lawsuit challenging the actions by federal government or federal government agencies. We filed in federal district court. We joined the lawsuit, filed on Saturday evening, and we expect it to proceed through the normal course. I do want to acknowledge and thank the terrific team from my office, in particular State Solicitor Bessie Dewar, Genevieve Nadeau, who is chief of our Civil Rights Division, and Jonathan Miller, chief of our Public Protection Bureau. They, along with many other people on my team here in the Attorney General's office, worked very quickly and intensely over the last few days to prepare this complaint. We did it with urgency. We did it with serious effort because we know how important it is to stand up for the Constitution here as a state and to stand in partnership and in solidarity with others around the state in speaking up for what is right and what must be right when it comes to our country.
I believe you said that there were some additional plaintiffs you had joining the suit. Are they individuals affected by this? And can you tell us a little bit about how many and who they are, or, you know, what their experience is?
The state, the Massachusetts, our office is filing a suit today on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and also on behalf of the University of Massachusetts. And I believe that you can hear it later from the other attorneys who filed the original lawsuit on Saturday, more about who they expect to add as plaintiffs later today.
General, will you be joining with any other attorney generals in challenging this?
You may have seen that on Sunday there were a number of us state attorneys general who issued a statement denouncing the executive order. There have already been filed an action out of the state of Washington challenging this order, similar to this case that we are filing here today. And we'll see. I don't know what will come by way of action by other states.
Madam Attorney General, can you just tell us, is the temporary order that is in place now being adhered to by the Department of Homeland Security? Do you understand?
Well, I hope so. We continue to get information, but certainly one must appreciate and recognize that that is an order from a federal court. It is an order that we expect to be followed. We have and will be filing papers later today asking for an extension of the stay of that order that the lawyers were able to obtain the other night. And in addition to that, we'll be asking the court to strike it down.
Can you comment on the fact that some airlines apparently are refusing access to people with valid visas, not necessarily green cards, but people who have valid visas?
Look, the order needs to be followed. I don't want to comment on information or speculative information without the benefit of that information. So look, as we continue to work on this, we expect to learn more. Obviously, we're interested in knowing real time what it is that is happening here in Massachusetts, what it is that is happening over in at Logan Airport, and certainly have an interest in what is happening outside of the United States with respect to people who are looking to enter and land at Logan and enter Massachusetts.
General, you briefed Governor Baker on the suit. Can you talk about his position and what he said to you?
Yeah. Well, the governor and I have spoken about this case, and our teams have worked together and communicated intensely over the last few days on this issue. The governor has issued, or will be issuing, I know, a statement, I believe, which we can be sure to get to you, and I appreciate his support for this litigation and this effort. I know he shares a very deep concern about what this executive order means, what it does, how it impacts the very institutions reflected here, and the interests of residents and businesses and nonprofits and organizations across the state of Massachusetts. So we are in solidarity, and I think that you see tremendous unity across this state, from elected officials to business leaders to nonprofit leaders to academics and academe. And advocacy organizations, all united in taking the stand that this is wrong and that this needs to be challenged.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. You wanna sit down?